All right, what's up, Kelly? Just to start with that. Oh man, I'm pumped to have you on. Finally got things scheduled out here. So the first thing I want to kind of talk about with you is we just talked about how you're just kind of starting your second round of your well balanced program where you guys um, help females primarily, and I'll talk have you talk maybe a little bit about that. But I kind of want to talk about what is maybe one of the biggest struggles that you see females have in regards to their health and wellness? Like, is it fitness? Is it nutrition? Is it their mindset? Or is there any like one biggest problem that people kind of come to you with that you feel like is a commonality amongst a lot of people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just from the like immersion of the diet culture mentality over the past, 10, 15, 20 years, that it's ingrained in your brain that, you have to look a certain way, you have to be a certain size, you can't eat sugar or enjoy alcohol or go on, feel like you can do all these things and have fun without feeling guilt and shame and, needing to check things off your list and following rules or like, resetting on a Monday. And I think it can get to a lot of women specifically, especially with the involvement of social media and how easily we can compare ourselves and just, think about our situation and whether or not we're progressing in the way that we want to, instead of focusing on how we feel and what works for us. Because again, I think, you can't compare your journey to other people. And through the Well Balanced program is what we want to educate women on and how they can fuel their bodies the best that they can, but also look at other factors too, and not just be so focused on a weight loss goal, but another purpose and why behind that, like to have balanced hormones, for example, to have healthy fertility and that avenue, or to be able to play with their kids when they're young little guys running around. So having just a different perspective, I think really it's just, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups and I see a lot of women just, I want to lose weight. What's the next diet program I can do? And all this stuff. And it's just unfortunately it's not realistic. And it's just something that I think convincing them there is a better option and that you can have fun, you can do things that you love and still achieve what you're looking for in a holistic and realistic kind of way. So I think that that's probably the biggest thing that we see in particular. And that kind of encompasses all of those things that you mentioned.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel like females probably struggle with it on a higher level than most males do. The guilt and shame thing around having unhealthy foods or alcohol and stuff like that. But what is, kind of for you personally, what have been some of the things that you've been able to do to have a better relationship with those kinds of things, with the quote like cheating stuff that a lot of people would normally say? Like, how do you have a good relationship with food so that you don't feel shameful or guilty when you do enjoy that?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, it takes practice, just like with anything else. And I think once you learn just how the body works, and it's just how it works. That's the way it is. And you now feel your body that way, you kind of start to learn those triggers on your own, and you just kind of become comfortable with what you're doing. And you give yourself grace. And I think that's the biggest thing is people just don't give themselves grace. If they go out on a trip and they have, a really bad day in the sense of the diet culture, they had ice cream and drank 5 margaritas on the beach and had chicken wings and all this stuff for dinner and, whatever, it's okay. And I think it's just, who are you with? What is the purpose of this trip, right? Is it with family? Are you growing as an individual? You're taking time off social media, doing other things that the food isn't always the only thing that matters. And just kind of remembering that and going back to, again, your why, and that one day that might be a little off isn't going to affect your life, right? It's the things that you do consistently over and over again. So yes, if you're doing those things every day, you're going to find yourself kind of in a spiral. But if you are majority of the time fueling your body properly, every once in a while, you're just going to have to just look at the picture and just realize that food is such a small part of that. So it takes really a lot of time and a mental shift for that to happen. But I think if you have the right resources, you have the right people to keep you accountable, to keep you educated, and to be there to save you in that sense when you get hard on yourself, then that's the best way that you can adapt those habits.
What do you think it actually looks like for people to give themselves grace? Because it's easy to say give yourselves grace, but what does that actually mean? Like, does that mean talking it out with somebody else and having them like tell you it's okay? Is it setting aside the time to journal? Is it having time with yourself? Like, what does that actually look like to give yourself grace?
Yeah, I think that's a very personal question. I think, for me, I like to talk things out. I like to have friends to kind of lean on in those situations, but journaling is also really great. We've had a lot of women who really found that to be valuable. In the morning, we just encourage like a brain dump, like 2 or 3 minutes. You just write whatever comes to your mind. It doesn't have to make sense. And as soon as you flip that page, you never look back at it. So it's an old thing. It's not relevant. As soon as you fill that journal, you throw it away. And those thoughts are essentially, it's all past in the sense that it's not making you move forward, right? We don't want to hold on to the things that we were struggling with or that we were so hard on ourselves for. So through the Well Balanced program, particularly with Jessica, who is the licensed therapist, and she's a friend of mine, she's involved. She's a huge part of that process, right? And how we really discuss like how we are emotionally connected to food, how maybe our childhood impacts what we do right now, how we were raised, how we viewed food from that perspective, or how our parents ate it, and all of that. So it kind of comes into play in that sense. And then we basically personalize that as they kind of find their own avenues, I feel. But there's definitely multiple options. And I think that, yes, if you actively are doing something, it's of course one thing to be like, oh, it's not a big deal. But I think, like you said, talking it through, writing it down, making a mental note that that's happening will make you for sure keep up with that.
Yeah. And so one of the things you also touched on a minute ago was how, yes, if you're doing these things every single day, it's probably not great. You're probably going to go down this negative spiral. And I feel like there is almost this kind of shift towards some people being like self-care, self-love, like love your body no matter what it looks like, all these kinds of things, which what do you feel like is the balance between giving yourself that self-care, giving yourself that self-love versus being honest with yourself and actually needing to stay disciplined? Like, no, you actually don't need a day off today just because you're tired, kind of a thing. Like, where's the balance, and how do you have that honest conversation with yourself between, is it time for self-care or is it time to actually do things that are going to get me closer to my goal?
Absolutely. Well, I think self-care is such a wide word that some people might find meeting a goal or going to work out as a form of self-care, right? Because it is an anxiety or stress relief in some senses. But yeah, it's definitely, I love sticking to goals. I'm very motivated on my own. And I definitely feel that sense of, failure in the sense of I'm not doing those things. But then I think it's also so important to know I think one of the biggest frustrations I see, especially with women who might not be super connected on their nutrition side, is that if they're sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night and they're not sleeping well, and then they get up at 4 or 5 a.m. to hustle and get a workout in, that shouldn't be your first priority, right? You should give yourself grace in that situation and prioritize what's more important, which is going to bed, getting a nice set of sleep, or maybe just taking the morning off, and then seeing how you feel later in the day. But I think we can put so much pressure on ourselves. Like, for example, I love morning workouts, but lately I've been able to realize, okay, I have a lot more flexibility in the day today, so maybe I'll do it a little bit later on and see how I feel. And I tend to, at the initial point, be mad because I'm not getting it in when I want to. But I think if you look at it in a day's perspective, what you've done in a day, and also how, look at the little wins that you've had, that can kind of help you keep discipline, but also find that balance and realistically what your priorities were that day, because every day is different. And, work comes and goes and you can't control those kinds of things, but just being able to know what your limit is and kind of going from there.
Yeah, I think sometimes so many of us lose perspective if we don't take the time to take a step back and almost look at ourselves as if we're viewing ourselves from somebody else's point of view. Because like you said, somebody who could get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, wake up at 4:30, feels like they need to go work out, and if they don't, they're mad at themselves. And if somebody else just pointed out to them what they've been doing, they'd be like, "Oh crap, you're right. Maybe I do need a little bit more sleep, a little bit more rest." I think people, if they can just either have somebody else give them that point of view and perspective, or they can try to step away from themselves and look at what they're doing from an external point of view, then it can be really important or really essential in terms of gaining perspective on what you've been doing.
Absolutely. And I think particularly, at least what I've learned in the health and fitness lately, is that we normalize a lot of things. And getting up at 4 a.m. to do a workout when you're exhausted, like, especially when we were in the industry more so, it's normal. You do it, you suck it up, and you gotta do it. You gotta make it happen. But half the time, you're not in the right state to be doing that. And it's okay if you find out a better plan that works for you, or need to take a break and, kind of make that for yourself. And I think that no matter what it is, we normalize a lot of things that I think the industry just puts in our minds, when it is a very flexible lifestyle. And it's gonna, if you don't even want to do the class, don't do it. Yeah. Go on a run or go on a walk and go hiking, like do something that you enjoy. And so I think that kind of, once you kind of get past that barrier of like, I need to do this because this is what people tell me to do and this is what's going to see results, where maybe that's not the best path for you, then you have to step back and you have to analyze, what are my goals? What do I want? And how am I going to get there for myself? Right.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I talk a lot about how it's super important for us to define success for ourselves. And so I kind of want to jump into the comparison thing and how we can all try to manage how poorly we compare ourselves to others, because I think it's something we all deal with, probably females again, majority more than maybe more than males. What have you found for yourself and for others has worked in regards to things that you can do to actually make sure you're not comparing yourself to others and that you're defining your own success and you're not just waking up at 4 a.m. and going to work out because somebody else is, but because it's actually what you want to do, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely struggled with that, especially being on social media in general. It's hard. It's definitely hard, and it gets to you. And I think for me, I've this past year really kind of just figured out what my purpose is and what I want my platform to be about, or my impact in that sense, and kind of, filtering out people that maybe didn't feel that space for me the most. And while I want to engage with those around me and be really supportive, I think it's also best to have a positive and uplifting feed for yourself, right? Like, you're in control of who you're following, what you're seeing on a daily basis. And if the things that you're choosing to view are not feeding you as an individual, then you should get rid of them, right? And it's just, what do you want to look at? And I think at the end of the day, like, you can't compare your chapter 1 to someone's chapter 12, right? As easy as that sounds to say, you don't know what they've been through. You don't know what struggles they've had, how much money they've lost building what they're doing, or what they've had to sell to raise the money to do this, or how many times they've been said no to. It's just, you have to always remember what you're doing and where you want to go, and putting those people and those opportunities in your place that will get you there. And it sounds so much easier than done, because it's just, I have these modes where I go into that, and then I'll go back on there and be motivated, and then I'll see one thing and I'll just like shut it off. So it's definitely tougher, but I think it's just putting yourself in a positive space, and then, giving yourself time away. I've learned a lot. I just love interacting with people in person and having events, in Atlanta. It's the in-person connection has never failed. So I think as much as you want to invest and look out in those relationships virtually, I think maybe looking into your community is a great way to find that sense of peace and who you really want to be and where you want to go.
Yeah. No, yeah, I like that a lot. I think that, like you said, kind of ditching the social media or just not spending as much time on it is obviously super, super big. And everybody says that they're going to do that. And I know, like, I just realized yesterday, I was like, I think I'm on this thing way too much now. Like, I used to be better on it. I think I need to focus on it a little bit more. And then I think that it's really big to realize the progress that you've made yourself as well. Because I think energy is going to be given towards comparison to a certain extent. And so you have to give that comparison energy towards the past version of yourself rather than to somebody else. But then you also have to realize that it's a journey thing, right? Like, because at this current point, maybe you're not as far along as you were a few months ago, and maybe you've taken a step back, but realize it's not over, and you can surpass that past version of yourself as well. Getting down to the last couple
I think
things.
you talked about one
Go
thing on
ahead.
that too. I was like, you talked about it too. Like, failure isn't always a bad thing, right? Like, I think we see failure as like, you're looking at it in a comparative way. Oh, I'm not able to get to that person, but maybe that's okay, and that happened for a reason, and you're able to grow from it. And again, you have to just look at your little wins every single day. Even if you just woke up and you're healthy and you're moving, just like the little things and basic gratitude, I think that can really help you focus on the bigger picture.
Yeah, I agree. What do you feel like and it's kind of along the same lines of comparison, but what do you feel like, again, has kind of helped you and help other females not get overly obsessed with body image with everything else out there, with TV, social media, magazines, all that crap out there? Like, how can you make sure that the body image of other people is not how you define success for your own body image?
Yeah, I think that's so hard. It's a very tough question, but I would say, it's just, it comes down to knowing what your body, right, and understanding how it's working and what you need, and that comes from just eating fruits and vegetables, coming from unprocessed and packaged foods, getting enough sleep, daily exercise, stuff like that. And also, I think it's perfectly fine to have a weight loss goal, and I think it's great. It motivates you, it gets you, the purpose is to be healthier, right? At the end of the day, if your weight is a factor in your health, you need to fix that. But it should be a realistic approach, and it's not going to happen overnight. So it's just knowing that these changes, and also for women specifically, like, our bodies change and all the things that we go through. And if, you're preparing for pregnancy or you're postpartum, whatever it is, you're never going to be the same that you were in college or even after college. And that's just something that you have to put yourself in a place to be grateful for how your body is able to even do the things that it's been able to do, let alone, be able to get back to that certain weight in a sense. And so I think, like, looking at your body in a more powerful and strong way, even if you can get through a workout without dying or halfway through it, versus, again, the weight and how your body looks in comparison to other people. Because I posted about it the other day. I said, just because you're skinny doesn't mean you're healthy. And it's looking at more than just the weight and remembering that they could be super ideal in their figure and all that, but they could be dying internally, and you would never know. And, you look at that and you want to be that way, but do you really? And would you rather feel amazing and be thriving at your best, or look amazing but be dying on the inside? So I think that's the best way to see it.
No, I agree. Well, last question, Kelly. For you personally, what are your most important 3 health habits?
Well, that's tough. First and foremost, I would say is to try to have as much of a routine as you can in the morning routine, whether it's 5 minutes and you get up, make your bed, brush your teeth, and sit on the couch for 5 minutes and read a devotional or a journal or whatever. Just having something in the morning that sets you up for success. No matter where you are or what you're doing, you make that a priority. I think that automatically puts you, makes you feel like you are a priority and that you can dictate how your day is going. I would say another thing is definitely exercise of some sort, 30 minutes, whether it's a walk outside, whether it's yoga. And I think finding just exercise that you love. Don't do something, again, just because someone else is doing it and you feel that's the only option. Exercise, if you do 5,000 steps a day, even just or a 2-mile walk every day for the entire year, that's a lot of steps, and it can add up. And all that, parking farther away from the grocery store, you can get added steps in there. Just thinking about how to do those things on a day-to-day basis. And then I would say sleep. Sleep is my third one. Prioritizing no less than 7 hours a night, having a nighttime routine as well. I think the morning and the evening should be very structured if you can. Having some tea, blue light blocking glasses, limiting your phone 30 minutes before bed. I need to work on that one too. And just letting your body relax and just doing something for yourself as much as you can so that you can get that good night's sleep and kickstart the day with energy. Because I think, yes, nutrition is so important. But realistically, if you're not sleeping well, your cravings are just going to go through the roof. You're going to start out really poorly and it's not going to really make a difference, right? So just honoring your body in any way that you can and listening to it and finding out what works for you.
Awesome. Well, 3 great things. Well, that's all we got today, Kellie. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course.